welcome to today's edition of DisBar, the Florida Bar. I'm your host, Les Winston. I'm with you every weekday here from 2 to 3 p.m. right here on the Business South Florida. We also stream live worldwide on www.disbarthefloridabar.com. This program was created by a 501c4 organization, DisBar, the Florida Bar Incorporated. And the purpose of the program is to bring to light stories of individuals who have been damaged by the Florida Bar and open discussion on how to change the way lawyers are disciplined in the state of Florida. Only lawyers, the only professionals in the state of Florida who are disciplining themselves. All other professions are disciplined by the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. There have been attempts in the past by state representatives, one in particular, Jerry Melvin from Fort Walton in the state of Florida, who presented legislation to change the way the lawyers are disciplined and never got out of the Judiciary Committee because that committee is comprised of lawyers who are members of the Florida Bar. The Florida Bar enjoys a very high level of protection, a very high level of, untouchability where nobody can really do anything about it. The leadership of the Florida Bar is corrupt. We have been declaring this on the program for a while. We have been mentioning their names, John Harkness, Jack Harkness, whatever it is. He is he's executive director of the Florida Bar, and he has been there for over 20 years. He is also a director on the for an insurance company that was created by the Florida Bar, Florida Lawyers Mutual. That insurance company is a for-profit insurance company that is owned by insured members of the Florida Bar. And the other individuals who are in dual positions are members of the Board of Governors who also sit on the Board of Directors of the insurance company. This is a very straight-out, blatant conflict of interest. It has been brought to the attention of everybody in the executive branch. It's been brought to the attention of Mr. Shepard, who is the chief prosecutor for the grand jury impaneled by Governor Christ. Bill McCollum is aware of it as the Attorney General. We have had discussions on prior shows about the ineffectiveness of Bill McCollum, that he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. We have also been talking with Jack Thompson, and we're going to reconnect with Jack. Jack is here in the studio with me this afternoon, and we're talking again about the corruption at the Florida Bar and how do we change the process. What, in your opinion, Jack, would happen if, in fact, there was an investigation by the grand jury and the grand jury was to say, yes, Jack Harkness, you deserve to be indicted. Ken Marvin, you deserve to be indicted. Attorneys who have been working for you and carrying out your mission, you deserve to be indicted. This could be an indictment of 100 people.
Oh, what a shame. Maybe the bar ought to look at it this way. There are a lot of criminal defense lawyers in the bar, but that'd be a lot of work for them.
Yeah, that's true. They have. Now, what money would they use to defend themselves? That would be an interesting...
I'm sure they'd get it from somewhere. Maybe from Jim Greer, former GOP chairman, maybe from the bar itself, who knows. But this is an octopus, folks. The Florida Bar, look, the Republican form of government that's guaranteed by the Constitution, and that's Republican with a little r.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the constitutional clause is that the states shall provide a Republican form of government, and it's a federal constitutional guarantee and promise and requirement that the states provide us with that Republican form of government. The Florida Bar subverts that in this state. You have people who are clothed with state governmental power.
Mm-hmm.
The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, the Florida Bar itself, and the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals all have decided that the Florida Bar is a state agency.
Mm-hmm.
By virtue of exercising governmental power, you have to adhere to what are the hallmarks of a Republican form of government, which include a tripartite form of government. What do I mean by that? Well, we have three branches of government, which in the Federalist Papers and in the Constitution are the hallmarks of a Republican form of government. You have the executive function, which enforces the laws. You have the legislative function, which simplistically passes the laws. And you have the judicial function, which tries whether or not and determines whether or not those laws have been violated and imposes a sanction.
Mm-hmm.
What we have in the Florida Bar is all three functions of government wedded into one. The bar makes the laws, the bar rules. They prosecute the bar rules. That's a legislative function.
That's an executive function.
Excuse me, that's an executive function. Making the rules is a legislative function. And then they choose the bar referee to determine without a jury whether or not you violated those bar rules, and then they send them up to the Supreme Court for enforcement. So you have wedded within the Florida bar all three forms of government, which itself is definitionally a violation of the guarantee of a Republican form of government because it weds all three functions into one. Secondly, we live in a state which is a right-to-work state. What does that mean? The Florida Constitution, as well as by Florida statute, guarantees that you can exercise your right to earn a living without being in a labor union or any other guild or any other organization that restricts the access to that profession improperly, and doesn't make a membership in that organization a requirement of earning that living. You don't have to be in the American Medical Association to practice medicine.
Or the Florida Medical Association.
Or the Florida Medical. You simply have to meet licensing requirements, and you have to satisfy a Department of Professional and Business Regulation that you are capable of practicing medicine. But what is the Florida Bar? The Florida Bar is definitionally a guild. It is a labor union which restricts access to the practice of law, thereby falsely elevating legal fees, restricting citizens from doing functions that a non-lawyer could do, thereby increasing revenue to the legal profession, and then, very disturbingly, denying access or removing from the Florida Bar individuals not on the basis of competence, but on the basis of everything other than competence, such as what your politics are, who you annoy within the Florida Bar, and so forth. When I was disbarred, I was rated AV by Martindale-Hubbell. What does that mean? That rating indicates the highest level of ethics, according to my peers, and also the highest skill level for a lawyer. I was a good lawyer, but now I'm not even a lawyer anymore, and under penalty of criminal prosecution, if I refer to myself as a lawyer, I can be put in jail. That's why I say I'm a recovering attorney.
Yeah, I think that the public needs to be aware of how it impacts them, and I don't think that that's really clear on what the true impact is to the public. But this is the stories that I've had aired on the program, over the past 2 months have been really heart-wrenching in many instances. I have a story of an individual whose mother was basically murdered as a result of the Florida Bar's inaction in a complaint that he made against the attorneys who were and the process that the attorneys were going through that basically caused his mother to be under a guardianship when she was fully competent, and took all of the funds that she had in the process. And this is something that goes on almost on a daily basis. I mean, there are folks out there listening today, I'm sure, who have been involved in guardianships that have been against the benefit of the individuals who are being guardianed.
Listen, I get a call almost every day from somebody who wants me to help them. Yeah. And I can't. They said, well, can't you tell me what to do? And I say, I can't even give you any advice, even just as a citizen, because it'll be construed to be giving legal advice. I can't help you because I'm not a lawyer, technically. Yeah. Well,
let me go back to that.
People need advocates who are willing to take on the 800-pound gorillas in the society, but now less the way it is if you do that, then the people who are wired and connected within the bar will use the bar's disciplinary processes to silence you and disbar you.
Well, that's what their protection is. So what I was getting at in the cases of these guardianships, here you have an individual who knows that he's been wronged. He's gone to the Florida Bar to prevent what's happening because the attorney is not doing what's supposed to be done.
Or just to punish what's happened.
Yeah, or to stop it. Well, to prevent it from happening.
Or even to punish it after the fact, yeah.
And either way. So what happens is that individual lost their mother, they lost their inheritance, they lost a lot of things. Then you have individuals like what you're alluding to. I have a lady, Nancy Grant, who is over in Sarasota and DeSoto County, or in Arcadia and DeSoto County, who was put in jail by the Florida Bar because she was declared to be operating in the unlicensed practice of law. And they're using that to incarcerate private citizens. And the Florida Bar institutes that because somebody, an attorney in that area, was being threatened, or a judge was being threatened by the fact that this lady was helping prisoners who had no rights, had their rights taken away from them, who were sitting incarcerated for years without hearings.
Yeah, I said right, exactly. But here's the worst one I came across.
Yeah.
And I met with this young man in prison in the state penal institution. While he was a student at the University of Florida, he was wrongfully accused of date rape.
Uh-huh.
This was like the Duke lacrosse case.
Right.
Only in some ways even worse. He didn't have a striptease party at his frat house.
Right.
This guy was wrongly accused, and he was convicted by the perjured testimony of the accuser. Okay, it became obvious that the prosecutor knew that this was false testimony, knew that it was a trumped-up charge, and knew that this kid was innocent. So the parents of this boy, whom I got to know, they filed a bar complaint against the prosecutor, who was in Willie Megg's office, that's in Leon County in Tallahassee, proving clearly that the prosecutor put before the jury false evidence, and that he was duty-bound to disclose to the defense when he had it that this kid was innocent. The Florida Bar Grievance Committee found that indeed the prosecutor had acted improperly and that he was unethically withheld this evidence, and which resulted in the wrongful accusation and conviction of this innocent kid. Okay?
Right. Yes.
Okay. That's the local grievance committee. Ronald Reagan and everybody else has said it best. Government is most responsive and most likely to get it right the closer it is to the people who want a remedy.
Right.
But then the clowns in Tallahassee and the Florida Bar governors got involved, and they overrode. Excuse me.
So they rid is right.
Yeah, they overrode the findings of the local grievance committee and said, well, and this is the most remarkable letter I think I've ever read in my life. The disciplinary review committee, acting as a committee of the Florida Bar governor, said this: we know that he did wrong, the prosecutor, but, quote, for the sake of the system, we are not going to allow him to be prosecuted and this matter for his ethics violations, and this matter is closed. What was the consequence of that? The prosecutor got off scot-free, and this innocent kid was kept in jail.
For how long?
For years. They knew this kid was innocent. He's finally out now, his life ruined, and he's trying to make the most of it. He was interrupted in his education. He's a brilliant kid.
Why doesn't he have redress against the state for that? I don't know.
He's afraid.
Yeah.
He's afraid.
Yeah, that's the problem. If we become afraid of our own system,
it destroyed him, and he doesn't want any more of it. And I don't blame him. But ladies and gentlemen, the Florida Bar put their signatures on a document which admitted that the prosecutor did wrong, that an innocent man was in jail, and they weren't going to do anything about it. And yet these same knuckleheads, Hank Cox, who was then bar president, and others, want us to cry crocodile tears for the enemy combatants in Guantanamo, whom they felt have been wrongfully detained, and that we should send Florida Bar lawyers down there to represent these terrorists who are complicit in the bringing down of the World Trade Center. So those people we're supposed to care about, but an innocent kid who's an undergraduate student at the University of Florida, wrongly accused of rape, incarcerated by virtue of perjured testimony, we're not going to lift a finger for, and that we're knowingly not going to lift a finger for. Something's upside down here.
And, of course, my commentary is similar in the sense that, unless it's your ox being gored, you don't think that there's something wrong.
Yeah, listen, I like to tell audiences this. Mayor Koch, the Democrat mayor of New York City, famously said a conservative is a liberal who's been mugged.
Yeah, right.
I like to say that a civil libertarian is a Republican who's been indicted.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Because once you've been indicted, or once the Florida Bar or some other state agency has come after you, and you know in your bones you're innocent,
right?
Then you finally get religion when it comes to constitutional rights of the accused, the right to due process, the right to a jury trial, to any kind of trial. I was convicted in a bar proceeding in which I was not allowed to put on any evidence.
Right. You were denied.
My referee received campaign contributions after she got my case from the three people most keen within the bar wanting me to be convicted.
Mm-hmm.
So my point to her and to the bar was you could convict Mother Teresa of prostitution in a case like that.
Right, exactly.
Because if you can't defend yourself, folks, then you're going to be convicted.
And this is all, what people don't realize is that there is one central theme here, one central agency that has the control, and that is the Florida Bar, because they have tentacles that go all the way up to the governor's office. He's a member of the Florida Bar. They go to all most of the legislators. They're members of the Florida Bar.
Attorney General Bill McCollum, who's asked citizens to come forward to the statewide grand jury to blow the whistle on corruption, is a member of the Florida Bar.
Right, and this is where the problem is, folks, because they are the octopus. They are all over the place, and they have tremendous power and tremendous control over their situation. We are trying to get somebody in the grand jury system, somebody, particularly William Shepard, who is the chief prosecutor, who was appointed by Bill McCollum. We want him to pay attention to the victims here of the Florida Bar's corruption. We have specific people at the Florida Bar who have performed these illegal acts. We can name the names. We've named them here on the show. We can tell you John Harkness is involved. We can tell you Ken Marvin's involved. We can tell you others, other prosecutors have been involved. There are people who work for the Florida Bar who just don't care what they say. They'll make up things. They'll make up law. I know in your case, Jack, they used a rule against you that wasn't even in existence before.
Right.
That's just an incredible story here, folks.
Yeah. Maybe the worst example is this. I go on 60 Minutes to blow the whistle on the Grand Theft Auto video games. I was in Alabama operating as an Alabama attorney because I was admitted to that state for the purpose of bringing this wrongful death action on behalf of these cops. The Alabama State Bar Rule says you're allowed to go to the mass media to blow the whistle on activity like that, especially if public safety is at issue.
Mm-hmm.
That was the rule that I was bound by. The Florida Bar's rules are not that clear. So what did they do? They prosecuted me under Florida Bar rules when the ABA and the Florida Bar itself, in their rules, says that the only rules that applied to me were the Alabama State Bar rules. So they even changed up on me in that regard. So, my individual thing is so egregious, so ridiculous, and there's so much there that, you've been talking about it. What's really important for the listening audience is that if you need a lawyer and you need someone to go to war for you, in effect, in a courtroom, you're less likely to get that representation, that zealous representation, because if your lawyer has to take on certain powers that be that are wired within the bar or within the state government, he will be gone after, he will be prosecuted, and the message is very clear that these are people that you cannot inconvenience, or they will get you.
Yeah, and it's the old story: you can't fight City Hall, and you realize that one of the reasons you can't do that is because the powers that be will do everything they can to stop whoever is representing you, and that's what happens in many cases.
Listen, when they get, I was very useful to them in that when you get someone like Jack Thompson, and it's reported statewide that this guy's been disbarred for taking on the Florida Bar, then everybody gets the message, don't they?
Yes, exactly.
And so it's a very useful. They don't have to get everybody; they just have to get one guy. And in fact, they've gotten dozens.
Yep.
And everybody's watching. Nobody's stupid, and they say, I can't really go as far as I need to because they'll come after me. But unfortunately, somebody has to take them on. Otherwise, they'll just go. They made it a police state. They'll define the battle, and they'll define the rules of the battle, and you won't be able to get the zealous representative of your rights that you need. This affects everyone.
It does, and what I mean by that, ladies and gentlemen, what Jack is talking about, my guest is Jack Thompson. Jack and I have had discussions many times on the air here, and the point of this is that they will affect you in many different ways. The importance is that attorneys who represent you need to know that they have to follow the rules, that they're not supposed to be conflicted, that they're not supposed to be doing things that are against your benefit. They're supposed to be working for you. And when you have a corrupted bar situation where the individuals are not going to be disciplined properly by the bar because they are in positions of power, they can get away with these things. And so you have instances where you can lose your property, you can lose your job, you can lose your family, you can lose your inheritance, you can lose anything that you own, all the wealth that you have. It can be taken from you, and the taking can be done in a court setting where you can be totally in the right, have every bit of the law on your side, and still lose. And so that's what we're trying to stop. We want that to stop by virtue of attorneys being concerned and having the knowledge that somebody's going to come after them and make sure that they're doing things right. Believe me, if doctors or other professionals, CPAs, insurance agents, if the other professions operated the way that the bar operates, where you have a good old boys club that allows an insurance agent to steal premiums and nothing gets done, or you have accountants who are taking your property through some extortion of some type and nothing gets done about it. Believe me, we would be up in arms. Well, it's happening right now in the legal profession, and it needs to stop, and it's because of the Florida bar's corruption. Jack, I want to thank you very much for this afternoon's segment. My guest has been Jack Thompson. Jack has had a really difficult and long-standing battle with the Florida bar, but I hope and I pray that you'll become victorious, that you'll be victorious in what you're doing now. You have the perseverance and the attitude that will help to turn things around. We need more folks like you in the world. We are going to be continuing the programs going on into the future. This is DisBar the Florida Bar. You can hear us streaming live on DisBar the Florida Bar, www.disbarthefloridabar.com. We stream live all around the world. If you want somebody else in another state or another country to listen to the program, they can tune in at 2 o'clock each day. You can also listen to all of the shows that have aired on this program. They are archived on the website. And we also are on Facebook. We would like you to help us with your contributions. It's very important that the show continue and that we air the victimization of individuals by the Florida bar. We hope to get the attention of the grand jury. We have over 15 victims now who have stated unequivocally that they have been victims of the Florida bar's criminal acts and corruption, and we want to bring that to the attention of the grand jury again, and we hope that eventually we will continue, as we continue to knock on that door, it will be open and the investigation will begin. There are specific individuals who we have stated their names, and we continue to talk about them here on the program. We ferreted out of the system. The system needs to be changed. The lawyers need to be disciplined under the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. We'll be right back after a short commercial break. Don't go away. My name is Les Winston, and I host DisBar the Florida Bar right here on The Biz in South Florida.
The United States Trustees Program is the largest organized criminal element in the world.
In Florida, all other professionals except lawyers are governed by the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. Only lawyers regulate themselves through the Florida Bar.
Because the Florida Bar is controlling all three branches of government now. We have attorneys in all three branches. There's a system out of control. There's no more check and balance.
This has created a very dangerous good old boys club and a lot of rotten apples.
Sue me.
Tune in each weekday from 2 o'clock to 3 p.m. and listen to stories of individuals who have been affected by the corruption of the Florida Bar. We want you to be aware of the problem that we have with this disciplinary agency. Join us every weekday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. right here on The Biz. And we're back. This is DisBar the Florida Bar. We're with you every day from 2 to 3 right here on The Biz, the fastest growing radio station in South Florida, 880 a.m. on the dial. And you can also find us streaming live online at www.disbarthefloridabar.com. Once again, this program is intended to bring to light stories of victims of the Florida Bar's corruption. And we have with us this afternoon, our guest is Eliot Bernstein. Eliot, I've spoken to you earlier. We've talked on other sessions, and we've talked about your massive problem with the Florida bar and also with the New York judiciary. Maybe you can give us a little thumbnail sketch of what happened to you so we can bring folks up to date with regard to your involvement with the Florida bar and the attorneys here in South Florida and in New York.
Okay. A quick review is that I invented two technologies. The technologies that are at stake should be understood that they weren't just run-of-the-mill inventions. They changed everything to do with digital imaging and video on the planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's from your use of internet video is using technologies I invented. Your watching of television uses technologies that I've invented. Every digital imaging device, from medical devices to telescopes to satellites to every digital camera that you snap a picture and zoom on, use technologies that I've invented.
What's your background, Eliot?
My background is I'm a psychology major from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I sold insurance for since high school till I began working with clients moving rock and roll bands around the world.
What were they moving?
I worked with a company moving rock and roll bands around the world, toured with a bunch of bands. And then I discovered the inventions, which I've always, since a bad car accident, had a appetite for computers, imaging, and video. And I had been working with the technologies, always staying on the cutting edge. And when the internet was born, it was going to be limited to text and banner ad type images because it operates at a very low bandwidth.
Right. So it's hard to get moving images, I guess, huh?
Yeah. And 30 frames a second, full screen, pumped down a little wire is not going to work.
Right.
And so the holy grail search for the internet was the search for how to distribute full screen, full frame rate video.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the inventions. And it uses mathematical scaling formulas I developed, which are, actually come from my psychology background. They are inventions that use the human mind instead of mathematical equations. What happens is, in both instances, images for the video are shrunk down to a very small size and distributed very small, and then blown up on the user's end, saving 75% of the bandwidth of trying to send full screen data.
When you invented this, when you discovered these inventions or you created these inventions, I guess those are the terms that we would use, I assume that as all other inventors, you want to protect the invention, so you apply for patents. Is that what you did?
Well, the first step is get an attorney.
Yeah, it's getting legal advice.
Correct.
Uh-huh.
And getting a patent lawyer.
Right.
And that was my first step.
Okay.
My father and I contracted with Proskauer Rose, who looked at the inventions here in Florida where they were discovered in Boca Raton, and the partners we took it to, Albert Courts, brought in his other partner at Proskauer, Christopher Wheeler.
How long ago was this, Eliot?
This is 98, 99.
Okay, so in 1998, you discovered this invention. You went to an attorney, the attorneys at Proskauer Rose, and you were working with an attorney there.
And he came back and misrepresented that Proskauer had patent attorneys, which they didn't. They had been mainly a real estate firm prior to my discoveries.
Right.
And he came back after several weeks of, seeing my inventions and telling me he was going to, get to his main office and find the right people. And what he did was he found the right people, but outside of Proskauer, one Kenneth Rubenstein, head of MPEGLA LLC, the solus patent attorney for MPEG. He had created a patent pool called MPEG, and the single biggest threat to MPEG was my technologies, meaning if they didn't have them, they'd be out of business.
So just let me reiterate. So you go to an attorney at Proskauer Rose. They tell you that they have patent experience. They don't. And
they bring in Kenneth Rubenstein saying he works for Proskauer when he doesn't, in fact, and that's later discovered by people who were doing due diligence on investing in the company.
Right.
So, I get a call saying, hey, you're telling everybody Kenneth Rubenstein's your patent attorney and that he's at Proskauer, but he really is at a firm called Meltzer, Goldstein, Wolf, and Schlissel out of Mineola, New York.
Right.
And
he represents a conflicting interest.
Oh.
Yeah.
Absolutely conflicting in the sense that for him to become my patent attorney without a clear China wall established between him and his MPEG pool, he actually created the MPEG pool that's the single biggest infringer and main culprit in the theft of my intellectual property.
Okay, so
and Rubenstein learned of my technologies under contract with Proskauer, acting as a Proskauer attorney, when in fact he and his partner Raymond, Joao, the other solus patent attorney who put 90 patents in his own name, all to do with my business plan and invention.
Hold on a second,
Yeah.
Eliot. Let me go back to that for a second. So the first problem arises when Proskauer doesn't really do patents. Proskauer Rose doesn't really do patents. They bring in somebody and say that he's part of their firm when he's really not. And he starts to get involved in your case, and he represents another entity that really is a conflicted and competitor of yours and is damaged by your invention. And then what happens? You get involved with another attorney who puts patents in his name? Is that what you said?
Yeah, well Rubenstein brought in a guy, Raymond Anthony Joao, and said he was with Proskauer at the time, too. And he was the guy who came out and took invention disclosures. Rubenstein was on conference calls through the invention disclosures. And they were putting on the front that they were with Proskauer. Now, when the investor came and said, whoa, these guys aren't with Proskauer, what's going on? I called Chris Wheeler and said, what's going on? Somebody just told me Ken Rubenstein is with a different law firm.
Right.
And Wheeler came back and said, oh, no, we're acquiring and, blah, and everything's fine. But in the meantime, you're going to have to take another retainer, because I'd already had one with Proskauer, for Meltzer Lippy.
Right, another law firm.
Because Rubenstein will be moving here shortly, which was, I believe, the next day.
Right.
And Rubenstein can't remember any of the details in his deposition, so it's a little harder to find out his transition dates if you read his deposition. But the two of them, Joao stays at Meltzer, so I have to retain now another law firm.
Right.
And Joao starts taking invention disclosures, and we notice that Joao is filing them late. There's missing things. There's missing inventions. Things are cracking, and at that point, there were a lot of interested people because a gentleman, Hassan Mia, who was responsible for the Intel CAA Multimedia Lab,
right.
He came out from California and declared the technologies the Holy Grail.
Right.
And now you had a whole of people and business associates of mine and my families and other people who came in as investors in the technology, which is probably, it should be noted here that prior to coming to me, Chris Wheeler and the guy he recommended for president of my company, Brian Utley, who was formerly with IBM, who was the general manager of the Boca facility shut down here, and another gentleman who came to my company through Proskauer again, William Dick, who represented Foley and Lardner, patent law firm out of Wisconsin. All three of these characters had just tried to rip off technologies from Monty Friedkin, a Florida philanthropist on the FAU board.
Right.
And then when they wrote their, when Wheeler from Proskauer gave us Utley's resume to hire him, there was no mention, in fact, of Friedkin's loss, that he had caught them stealing, shut down his business, and fired Utley and all these guys on the spot. Mm-hmm. In huge economic law.
So they had a history. These attorneys had a history of ripping off inventions.
Yes.
Okay, and now they rip it. Now they're in the process of ripping off your invention.
And so Wheeler comes in, misrepresents. So the crew has got to get in around me and do the same. Now at Friedkin's, which was Diamond Turf Equipment Company out in, I think somewhere in Fort Lauderdale or so, when they came into my company, Wheeler brought in Utley, but he brought in a falsified resume that said that Diamond Turf went on to be the leading lawnmower due to Utley, but that wasn't true. The truth was Utley was fired on the spot because Friedkin caught on that they were stealing intellectual properties from his company.
Is Friedkin still alive?
I believe so.
Yeah,
not Friedkin here in Florida.
Do you have any contact with him?
He was on the FAU board. I don't. I don't. I called him one day, and he exposed that Utley had lied on his resume. He gave me the full scoop, and I believe he talked to some lawyer friends of mine, and that was it. And, we didn't really need much more from Monty, other than a thank you for exposing the truth. And I didn't call Monty till after we had really discovered the whole of what was going on at Iviewit with these same three people who schemed Friedkin, which is Wheeler from Proskauer, Bill Dick from Foley, and Brian Utley from IBM. They brought in some other IBM old crony guys, and some of this might, I've inferred that IBM's become the most inventive company on the planet Earth, and it might very well be that there's a crew of people. In fact, Bill Dick handled the Far Eastern patent pool for IBM. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't know if this ring, how deep it goes of patent thieves, but I can tell you they brought in MPEG right quick. Proskauer then brought Rubenstein into Proskauer, and they formed, right around my technologies, an intellectual property department.
So what they did was they captured your intellectual property by virtue of creating a quasi-legal kind of a cabal around your patents.
Well, think about this. Patent pool, so it's not just a cabal. Rubenstein had a patent pool. Proskauer acquired Rubenstein from Meltzer, so they acquired control of the MPEG patent pool. And then they went to push me out of the market and destroy my companies and my life in the hopes that I...
What is a patent pool? What is a patent pool exactly, Eliot? What is it?
Patent pool is where you try to control a standard. Singer-Sewing tried it. RCA tried it. The Justice Department busted them up.
Right.
Because usually what a patent pool is a mechanism for lawyers to make off with inventor money.
Okay.
And try to control the standards and create an anti-competitive market. Because, look, if you take your invention to Rubenstein and he loves it,
right,
there's a few plays he can make on you to steal it from you. He can become your attorney, like he did with me,
right,
and steal your patents that way and try to push you out of the market quietly while they're stealing them before they get caught. Now, I don't know how many people have caught them, but, in my case, the idea was that Rubenstein would get the inventions, put them into the MPEG patent pool, and then they'd block me from market while they rolled them out and try to kill me. And basically, they put a bomb in my car and tried to murder me.
So if they murder you, the trail, the way, you're the only one that really has the complete knowledge of it and the intention to go after them to recover your property.
Absolutely not. They're less to get this far over 10 years. I had to sell a lot of people on the future of the technologies being ours. And from military people down the line that I had to make deals with,
right.
It wasn't just me.
Right.
There were a lot of people who came into this and put in money. So Proskauer is ripping off all those people.
Okay.
And then from there, once we discovered what was going on publicly, made it public what was going on, a lot of people had to be brought in because it was effectively seen that, if there was a possibility of an actual treasonous group at the patent office, we had no idea that it would extend to, a treasonous group against the entire country.
And but you're basically working with Florida attorneys, and when we come, I'll just take a short break, and when we come back from that break, I want to talk about what you did with regard to the Florida attorneys to try to remedy your situation. My guest this afternoon is Eliot Bernstein. Eliot has had a huge legal battle going on with the lawyers, and with the bars in Florida and New York. And we'll be back with him in a moment. This is DisBar, the Florida Bar. I'm your host, Les Winston. I'm with you every weekday from 2 to 3 p.m. right here on The Biz in South Florida. South Florida's fastest growing station. We are talking with victims of the Florida Bar's corruption. We've been listening to Eliot's story of how he got involved with attorneys with his patent inventions. And when we come back from the short commercial break, we can continue with Eliot's story. I want to remind you that we do stream live on the web at www.disbarthefloridabar.com. We are a 501c4 organization called DisBar, the Florida Bar Incorporated, and we survive on contributions made by supporters, and we certainly ask for your help if you are interested in seeing change occur, getting the Florida Bar out of the regulatory business with attorneys, cleaning up the good old boys network and eliminating the rotten apples in the legal profession, the rogue attorneys who are taking advantage of citizens of Florida. There are rogue attorneys all over the country, but we're concentrating on the Florida Bar and the Florida Bar's relationship with attorneys, where they've created a good old boys club and lots of rotten apples. We need to change that. The lawyers need to be regulated in a different fashion, and it will stop their thinking that they can get away with whatever it is that they want to get away with, as they have in the past. We'll be right back after this short commercial break. Don't go away. We'll be back with Eliot Bernstein. My name is Les Winston, and I host DisBar, the Florida Bar, right here on The Biz in South Florida.
The United States Trustees Program is the largest organized criminal element in the world.
In Florida, all other professionals except lawyers are governed by the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. Only lawyers regulate themselves through the Florida Bar.
Because the Florida Bar is controlling all three branches of government now. We have attorneys in all three branches. There's a system out of control. There's no more check and balance.
This has created a very dangerous good old boys club and a lot of rotten apples.
Sue me.
Tune in each weekday from 2 o'clock to 3 p.m. and listen to stories of individuals who have been affected by the corruption of the Florida Bar. We want you to be aware of the problem that we have with this disciplinary agency. Join us every weekday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. right here on The Biz. And we're back. This is DisBar, the Florida Bar. I'm your host, Les Winston. My guest this afternoon is Eliot Bernstein. Eliot, you were talking about the process that you went through. I mean, you've had a very interesting and varied career, and you came upon these inventions. You created these inventions that were major inventions of really, I guess, being able to view video on a computer screen. I guess that's what the nut of it is. Is that a proper definition?
That's how it was discovered, but when you turn on your television, the fact that you have 200 channels instead of 40 is also attributable to the invention.
Okay, so it's really an extension of what you can put on the television networks as a result of the use of cable and so on. But that invention, when you realized what you had, you hired a patent attorney. You thought at the firm of Proskauer and Rose. You found out later that they weren't patent attorneys, that they hired other parties to handle the patent work who are not members of Proskauer Rhodes. They ended up interfering or surrounding your patent with what is called a patent pool. And that is a technique that they use to control the patent, I guess, and to capture the revenue from the patent in many different ways. When you discovered that this was going on with your invention and your patents, and you may have gotten that sickening feeling in the pit of your stomach, the hair on the back of your neck rose, and you couldn't figure out how to get rid of this, did you go to the Florida bar with the problem?
Well, I did, but first, and it's an interesting trail to the bar. Mm-hmm. The first thing was, we ascertained where the attorneys really were for, and that raised brows of people that they weren't actually with Proskauer.
Right.
But we got over that, and Wheeler was now promising that MPEG would pay us a royalty and licensing once Rubenstein determined if they were valid patents, and they hadn't been seen by any black box, engineers. So they took us over to a client of Chris Wheeler's, Real 3D, which was Intel Silicon Graphics and Lockheed Martin. Mm-hmm. Lockheed being the 70% owner of the company, Intel 10% SGI. And they brought in their engineers from around the world, and mysteriously Rubenstein and Joao were supposed to be at the disclosure meeting, and they both fell off the planet Earth that day, even though they were scheduled, and didn't attend the meeting. But we forced disclosures on all of the Real 3D people before we would tell them how we were doing it, and we ended up signing a license with them as well. Mm-hmm. But what happened was the engineers came in from the three companies, and it might have been about 20 of them, and they knew every technology in imaging and video in the world because Lockheed's the biggest purveyor of imaging and video technology in the world. Real 3D dating back to the original lunar launches, mm-hmm. and controlling a patent pool that pretty much monopolized the 3D technologies to that point in history.
Okay.
So if anybody was going to know if my stuff existed, it was these guys. They came in, they couldn't figure it out.
Right.
When asked by the chairman of the company, Gerald Stanley, who was Wheeler's good buddy, what the value of the technologies was, the chief engineer, Rosalie Labona of Real 3D, said they were priceless.
Right.
Billions, hundreds of, and I mean, numbers that, I'm suing for $12 trillion.
Right.
12 pounds at $1 trillion each.
Right. Right.
But, I don't know what the value of electricity was over time. These are that powerful of inventions. So what happened was, once we got the confirmation and we had the MIA calling it the Holy Grail, and he was the guy who made the Internet for the public from the CIA's creation of the Internet, he took it out to the public. And now with all these blessings, it was very difficult for Proskauer now because actually a lot of people had invested, meaning we were starting, Wayne Huizenga, the Florida billionaire, the Miami Dolphins, mm-hmm. Waste Management, Blockbuster mm-hmm. Video. Mm-hmm. He was the seed money in the company. Mm-hmm. Then there was a Crossbow Ventures out of West Palm Beach who put in millions of dollars. And then most significant is the Crossbow's money was 2/3 SBIC, SBA loans.
Right.
And so one of the largest owners of my technology that they're ripping off is actually the U.S. government. And I've petitioned the SBA, and they have an ongoing investigation of these attorneys at the Inspector General's office.
Okay.
That's been going on for several years.
So how did you get to the bar? Let's go back to the Florida bar. What was the process?
Okay, so we caught Joao next with the switching patents and putting patents in his name, and there were rumors, and somebody told us that he might be patenting in his name. And, it was almost unbelievable. Like you said, it gets you sick to the stomach.
How do you spell that name that you're saying?
Raymond Joao, Joao.
Joao, Joao. Okay.
The most inventive inventor since Edison, but only after learning of my technologies under disclosure.
Okay.
He patented 90 patents. And probably what the intent was to put them in the patent pool because patent pools are divided up according to number of patents. So Rubenstein probably had Joao just write any patent that related to my stuff so that they could get 90, patents in there and split the pool up to more Proskauer.
Uh-huh.
And so, that might be how they're moving the money around.
How are you damaged as a result of that?
Well, Joa failed to patent our inventions properly. People have reviewed it and said he, on the one hand was showing us one invention and that we signed, and then replacing the signature pages and filing nonsense while going out and filing for himself and, Proskauer, who employed him to work with us, that, put him into his own name. So it hurt us dramatically. In fact, we had licenses with Warner Brothers and Intel through Real 3D, and all was going well. But when Warner Brothers found out about some of these patent issues, that license stopped overnight, so we could clear up these issues, and it's been going on since 2001. We caught Joa.
Yeah. So this is all something you owned these, and now Joa has interfered, and he now shows that he's owning them. So he's interfering with your ability to contract with anybody.
And he's been contracting some of them and licensing them and selling them to public companies and all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
And
he's a Florida attorney?
Rubenstein put it onto every MPEG compliant product in the world that streams video. So you're talking back-end encoders, video cameras, software for cameras, televisions, software for televisions, you name it, the chips. Well, the reason Intel bought Real 3D 100% was because Intel put the technology right onto their chip.
Okay, so now you got Joa, who's a Florida attorney.
No, he's from Yonkers.
Oh, he's from Yonkers, New York.
Correct.
Okay, so
Rubenstein's from New York.
Rubenstein is from New York. He's from Mineola.
He was working at Nelson, Mineola with Joa.
So
originally, him and Joa. Well, actually, if you look at their depositions, it's so confusing. I don't know how they came together yet.
So those are two attorneys from New York. They got involved by Proskauer Rose or by, huh?
Both of those guys got involved by Proskauer, representing them initially as Proskauer Patent Counsel.
Right. Okay. So now
we bust Joa. So we go to Wheeler and say, oh, my God, there's rumors of buzz of Joa stealing and making bad patent filings. And, you got to investigate this. This is your guy.
Right.
So he comes in after a few days and he says, oh, my God, Eliot, I can't believe I didn't think of this originally. But me and Brian Utley, who's your president, have a friend who Brian used to work with, one Mr. William Dick. And we know him. He's a good guy. They forgot to tell me that they ripped off Friedkin together.
Right.
And he'll replace Joa, and you get Foley and Lardner, one of the biggest patent firms in the world. Now, and I knew Foley. I had gone to school in Madison, Wisconsin, so, I knew of them.
Right.
And I knew of them from my insurance dealings.
Right.
And I had, no idea who Michael Grebe was and what he is. But he became, with Mr. Dick, part of the cabal of corrupted attorneys to now try to cover up the Joa. So Foley comes in with Dick, Mr. Fari's patent pooling guru from Foley, and Dick's going to correct all the Joa problems, and he's going to assign the patents properly to the right places that Joa didn't do.
Right.
Going to put on all the inventors who were supposed to be on originally, but they left off because
he's going to straighten out all the errors that Joa made, and bring you back whole.
In fact, Foley comes back, and their first report is horrible for Joa. It says, he's missing files. The files are empty.
Right.
And so it's this whole thing. Dick gets in close to me through his two guys. Bowman and Becker, two more attorneys they bring in to, get my invention straightened out. Joa had filed provisionals and one actual provisional to patent pending. And then Foley came in and they were going to file the rest of the provisionals as they became due. And lo and behold, as we're going to patent the idea, Brian Utley asked me to sign blank patent documents, of which I said no, and he said, well, they have to be in tonight, so you got to sign them, and I don't have the patents here for you to review, and they're too big, and you wouldn't be able to review them in that much time. And I happened to notice the patent volumes on his desk. So with a friend of mine, Jim Armstrong, who was working at the company and a shareholder and a founder and inventor, what happened next was I grabbed the books, and my friend watched over Mr. Utley as I copied them. And when we went to review the patents, we found that Mr. Utley suddenly was now an inventor, even though he wasn't there at the time of invention.
Okay.
On certain patents, like zoom and pan on a digital camera, invented soullessly by Brian Utley.
Okay.
And Foley and Lardner did the old work on that.
Okay.
And what's interesting is under review from Wachovia Securities for a private placement, nobody mentioned any of these patents.
Okay.
And Foley was questioned by them as to the assignments of all of the patents. Well, later we find out from Harry Motes, the director of Office of Enrollment and Discipline for the federal patent bar attorneys, that everything that was on the Foley and Lardner docket was false.
Okay, so
in fact, I'm forced to seek an act of Congress, which I am from Dianne Feinstein, to change the patent law to allow me to amend patents which I'm either the inventor, owner, or assignee of, although they're listed in business plan after business plan and in Wachovia private placement memorandum as patents owned by my group.
Okay, Eliot, we're coming.
Eliot, information unless you're an owner, inventor, or blah. So we're seeking Feinstein's aid to amend the patent law where your attorneys have stolen your patents to be able to get the information to change those patents.
Okay, correctly. Eliot, we're coming up to the end of the show of this segment, and I want to introduce this segment in the next show because we need to bring in the Florida bar to this conversation. And at this point, we've got a whole bunch of attorneys from different parts of the country who have been involved in this, and obviously what you've invented is a really important invention, and you are trying to reestablish your rights to it and the money that you're entitled to. This is DisBar, the Florida Bar. I'm your host, Les Winston. We're with you every weekday here from 2 to 3 on The Biz, fastest growing station in South Florida. We're talking about the Florida Bar and the problem that folks have with corruption at the Florida Bar because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, denying honest services and in many cases obstructing justice. We're going to continue our discussion with Eliot Bernstein on our next show, so tune in tomorrow for the continuation of the Eliot Bernstein story. We will be, again, broadcasting at 2 o'clock, 2 to 3 p.m. right here on The Biz. Tune in then.
We are building a case, and it takes time. You know that.